This episode of Hero Movie Podcast is brought to you by grass, making you super itchy when you lay down on it since the dawn of time. Grass!
Grass not available everywhere.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. I'm your host, Adam Portress, and I'm joined by Sweet Seanza Kovacs from the internet.
Is that Ellis from Die Hard?
And of course, Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and what better place to find a date than a cemetery?
Oh.
I couldn't help but notice you're mourning the loss of a loved one. I, too, am mourning the loss of a loved one.
Let me hit on you a little bit. That's when, you hit on the ladies when they're the most vulnerable, and that is at the graveyard.
Oh, here, I got you some flowers. Pull them off the grave she's looking at and hand them to her.
It's just, you swipe the water off of it, and you're just like, nope, these are dry. That's cool.
What a lovely place for an edible arrangement.
We are back, everybody, and it's a week late because we had Bill and Ted come out, and which we were super happy to do that little bit of VOD action. But we wanted to finish off our Netflix month, which was technically last month, with our Patreon support. And, of course, it's the new month here and everything. So let's tell you about it. Patreon.com/HMP. When you go there, you get the pre-show, post-show, and, of course, Dinger Zone. On the Dinger Zone, for an example, to give you something to kind of look forward to. We've done like all the Mission Impossible movies. We've reviewed all of the Fast and Furious films. We reviewed all the Matrix films. We put a ton of content out there. Most of these shows are about 45 minutes to an hour, so it's not just like loose little stuff. We're getting into it, and we got all kinds of good stuff over there. So if you'd like to help support this show, head on over to patreon.com/HMP. And one of those fun things is you get to vote on a film that we watch every month. And this month we took a whole bunch of films that were on Netflix, and guess what came out on top? That's right, you read the description in your podcatcher there. It's Batman, Mask of the Phantasm from 1993. Whew, long time ago. It's actually got a theatrical distribution. I remember seeing ads for it and stuff, but like it never came out. There, at least not that I could remember.
I remember seeing the movie poster up at the cinema, but I went to see other movies. I didn't go see this one.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you were a smart parent, you would look at the running time and say, an hour 16, I ain't paying that kind of money for that. You're waiting till video, boy. But we'll be talking about that today because our lovely patrons have voted for it. So Batman, Mask of the Phantasm, looking forward to that. Before we get into the show proper, though, I do want to say, like I said, big thank you to all those people, really the most ones at the top of the game here. Derek and Tim coming in at the icon level, and, of course, Alex, Brian, and Matthew coming in at the executive level. You boys are the top of the tops here, and we really appreciate that. And everyone else that's come in under that, you are a very valuable person to us as well. So thank you for helping make this show happen, everybody. And, we don't do this on all of our shows. It's just on this one. So we appreciate that because we put in some work for you, and we love you for it. Because it's fun. I don't know if it's fun to you guys, but it sure is shooting fun to me. I'd hope 7 years into it, you'd at least be having some fun with it. If you hated it, I'd be like, why are you still here? Let's go ahead and get into it, boys and girls. Here is the trailer for Batman, Mask of the Phantasm.
This Christmas, for the first time, America's most exciting and legendary motion picture hero comes to the screen like you've never seen him before. The Bat! In an all-new, larger-than-life feature film. Now, the Dark Knight confronts his newest and most menacing villain.
Your angel of death awaits.
The Phantasm.
I want you.
And faces his greatest danger.
Can't be too careful with all those weirdos around.
A soaring new adventure. Batman, Mask of the Phantasm. The animated movie. Coming for a Christmas you'll never forget.
Alrighty, that was the trailer for Batman, Mask of the Phantasm. I think Batman's a comic book character or something. Who's to say?
It's time for Bruce's comic book connection.
Bruce, I hear Phantasm is something other than a Don Coscarelli film. Is that right or wrong?
Yes. Well, Mike W. Barr is from Akron, Ohio, the city all the most recognizable brands of American tires come from, and also LeBron James. That's actually the city motto. It says, "Welcome to Akron, home of a bunch of tires and LeBron James, and we still got the tires. Get bent, Lakers." Now, according to Mike W. Barr's biography, he's worked on Star Trek, Star Trek The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager. Now, this tidbit seemed off to me because he was only like 14 years old when Star Trek, the original series, was being produced. And, nothing is outside of the realm of possibility. But I took a deeper dive, which revealed he worked on Star Trek comics, which is cool. But you ought to say I worked on Star Trek comics, not I worked on Star Trek, because Star Trek is, a TV show. I can't go around saying I worked on the Manhattan Project just because I worked on a comic book project about Kansas State University, which is, of course, located in the Little Apple, Manhattan, Kansas. But Barr worked on all kinds of comics, not just Star Trek, but also Elongated Man, Mystery in Space, and Green Lantern, among other titles. But one day he got the call. It was time to fill in a very rare and elite fedora, because one day he got the call to pick up where Frank Miller left off. When it was time for someone to write a sequel to the legendary Batman Year One, it was Mike Barr who got tapped for the HMP style titled Batman Year Two, which was not only a follow-up to Batman Year One, but also the loose inspiration for Batman Mask of the Phantasm. Batman Year 2 takes place in the second year of Batman's masked vigilante career, and he faces off against another masked vigilante. But in the comic book story, it is the Reaper rather than the Phantasm. In the comic, the lady Batman meets isn't philanthropist Andrea Beaumont. Am I saying that right? Beaumont. But Rachel Caspian, an aspiring nun. And since the lady wants to be a nun, Bruce Wayne thinks it makes perfect sense to date her. Oh, that Bruce is a really randy dog. What a scoundrel. Well, in the comic, the eventual reveal with the Reaper isn't that he's Batman's paramour, but instead he's her father, which is shocking, but not too shocking. Now, of course, when Batman leads to the end of Reaper's career, Rachel kicks Bruce to the curb and takes up an old habit. An old nun's habit, that is, and gets her very pious self back to the convent, leaving Batman in a pool of tears that can only be dried by his nigh endless wealth. Now, here's a little sneaky inside baseball tease for folks who are curious about the Robert Pattinson Batman flick that's on the horizon. At the recent virtual convention DC Fandom, it was reported that the Batman will be set during the titular character's second year in his vigilante career. So maybe, just maybe, we could get a little Mask of the Phantasm feel up on the silver screen or video on demand, depending on the state of the world as we move forward. All in all, the takeaway is that you probably should keep your nun dating to a minimum. Now back to you in the studio, Adam.
Yeah, don't date nuns. I've done worse than that, but you don't want to go down an alley that you ain't supposed to go down. That's all I'll say about that. But I was so 1993. I remember seeing tons of commercials for this. I remember renting it from Blockbuster Video, but I also remember not particularly caring for it all that much because, like, I'm 11 years old and watching it this time, I can tell you this movie's not made for children. That's the biggest. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yes,
you put your 10-year-old in front of this, they're not going to like it. I don't think.
And I said that I remembered seeing the movie poster up at the cinema. Didn't know what I was going to go see, so I looked up other movies with a release date close to this, which was released on Christmas Eve in 1993. And I'm pretty sure the movie I went to see was Fatal Instinct. Do you remember that one?
Fatal Instinct? I know
Yeah,
Fatal
it's a
Attraction
spoof
and Basic
movie, right?
Instinct.
Yeah, it's the spoof of Basic Instinct and Fatal Attraction.
Boy.
Oh,
And
boy.
it's absolutely the kind of movie I had to see in the theater in 1993.
Oh my God.
You don't get to see Bob Uecker every day,
I think you answered my question as to why we didn't see it. If it came out in Christmas, no way in heck my parents were bringing us to a movie theater around that time. That just was not going to happen. It's like, look, you got Christmas toys or you can go see Batman in the theater for an hour 16. What do you want to do?
And Fatal Instinct and Look Who's Talking Now was out about that time. RoboCop 3. It was a crowded cinema.
1993 is crazy.
The thing that I remember most about this movie is that it was the game changer when it came to tie-in toys, because if you guys, I don't know if you guys remember or not, but they released the toy of the Phantasm where the where the character is unmasked in the
Oh,
toy.
I heard about that. Yeah.
Yes. The famous toy spoiler.
Right. And so, and they kind of started locking down after that with the toys anyway. And this is the first instance I can remember of that happening.
And I would even say it's lessons learned from Mask of the Phantasm are why there wasn't a Baby Yoda available for purchase before Christmas last year.
Yeah, I think so too.
I feel like they still should have had something a little more working in the pipe than what they had, which was nothing.
But man, I mean, it's impossible to think of now because it's just such part of the culture. But when they pop open that pod with Baby Yoda inside, I cannot tell you how shocked I was.
It was an oh my God
Yeah,
moment.
me
I
too.
can't believe what I'm seeing here.
Totally unprepared for that, and I feel prepared for everything these days.
So 1993, they put this out in theaters. I don't think it does very well, if memory serves. Let me look at the box
And
office.
I also know in 1993, I felt like this was just basically a glorified episode of Batman the Animated Series. But now having watched it, I think it feels, I mean, it definitely has some similarities with the art style and the voice actors and stuff. But this does feel like it's in a totally adjacent but different world in the animated series to me.
Well, it's also, but it does have that same feel where, I mean, you're clearly watching people who love this property and treat it well.
Yeah.
And I really, because I hadn't watched, the only time I watched Batman the Animated Series at this point in my life is for this show. But it was so nice to see this. You know, it's, for one, it's short, which is great.
Yeah.
The art style is so lovely. I was not expecting that opening where, you know, you're going through Gotham City and it's 3D rendered and it's beautiful and it's all Art Deco and it's just,
And
it's a nice way to lead you into what you're about to see.
And maybe I'm just reflecting what I want to see onto the screen, but I was really impressed with this animation. It almost felt like Max Fleischer rotoscoped Superman shorts. It really had a certain fluidity to it that's absent from a lot of stuff that was animated in the 90s. So I really, really enjoyed the art on this.
And if you would have asked me though, like in that 93, probably we'll call it 94 because it released in Christmas. So that 94, 95, whenever I ended up finally seeing this thing, my recollection is like, oh yeah, it's just it. If I remember right, it felt like we just watched quite a long, maybe a 3 for animated episode that they just kind of stitched everything together. But man, it's not just the visuals, and the visuals are definitely a big part of it. But every single aspect of this movie is so cranked. I love it so much. From the visuals themselves, the sound design is far different than what the television show was. They had Shirley Walker in there who did some of the music for the television show itself, but she's also done a lot of other things. This score is amazingly good. It is so much better than this animated movie has any right to be. It is so darn good. The explosions, all the sound effects, they are not going in to their standard files that they've got over there for Batman the Animated Series. It sounded like they re-recorded everything. And what's on Netflix right now is just a stereo mix, and it's fantastic. I was really shocked at how well everything sounded and everything looked, to where I couldn't believe that the younger me thought this was it's just Batman the Animated Series but longer. No, the quality is a lot better.
And I have to think that Dana Delaney is a pretty big get in 93. I mean, she's just off a memorable run on China Beach. I feel like there was a couple of years where she was like in the zeitgeist.
It was a pretty big deal. I do remember that, where, oh wow, they got Dana Delaney. Like it was not small potatoes that she was doing a voiceover.
And Dana Delaney,
and it actually was probably the best thing that's ever happened to her career, because on top of, because she's on TV still, and she has she's got her own show sometimes where it'll last like for a season or whatever, but the rest of her career she's going to be doing voiceover work.
Yeah, she got the Lois Lane role directly from how well she did here when Bruce Timm liked her, and it led to something. So that's great. And if Dana Delaney is like a big get, a recognizable name to get the parents in, you get the kids in with Stacy Keach, right?
Oh man, kids love Mike Hammer.
I don't know that I ever watched a single one of those Mike Hammer movies, but I saw every single ad for him ever. So like, I feel like I've seen them all.
He's great in everything he's in, and like, man, when you hear that voice at first, because I didn't look at the cast or anything, I was just like, and I gotta say, I'm a little surprised that they didn't put any cast voices and stuff in the opening credits. It's all just the regular animation stuff. And I know that at the end of the day, this is a, animated feature and everything. But in today's world, they would put, all the names up there, I would think.
Yeah, I think the approach though is that they cast as often as they can recognizable celebrities in voice roles. 93, they're still just casting good voice actors in voice roles, and some of them may just happen to be recognizable celebrities.
Yeah, Aladdin changed all of that. After Aladdin, then the celebrities sold the movie.
Yeah,
and I
the
think
movie
Toy
that
Story
started,
was a big part of that too.
The one that I remember really starting it, and the first time that I remember them making a super big deal in an animated thing was Titan AE. Bringing in Matt Damon, and they were like, whoa, Matt Damon, a guy that we only know from live action stuff, is doing a voice for this thing. I think that's what it was called.
I remember when I first saw Toy Story, I thought, man, they've got like the two biggest actors in the world. They're both exactly equal in quality, and I bet they stay that way.
For sure. But dude,
that's another thing, that Tim Allen sitcom, it just got renewed again this year. I can't even tell you the name of it.
5 years ago.
I say what?
I would have sworn it was canceled like 3 seasons ago.
8 seasons of that show.
Sheesh. And I think that's actually technically his third sitcom. If
I do not know.
I could be wrong. I don't know. But the cast is stacked, man. We got Abe Vigoda in here, who like the character looks like either Abe Vigoda or or what's his name from In Like Flint. I can't remember his name. James Coburn. He's got I thought either this could be Abe Vigoda or James Coburn. Either one. Dick Miller is in it. Come on, Dick Miller is just the best, and you've got your standard, cast from Batman there, including, obviously Mark Hamill, who's just the best. Bob Hastings as Commissioner Gordon, who will always be my Commissioner Gordon. I don't give a crap. And of course, also the best Alfred ever, Ephraim Zimbalist Jr.
You just went right by the most shocked I have been in like watching a movie in like a million years.
Which is
Art Bachner is the voice of the Congressman, Arthur Reeves.
Oh, yes.
And I could have sworn that the dude who played Ellis in the first Die Hard movie, that was all he had ever done. But because of this movie, last night watching it again, and I'm like, wait a minute, I know that voice. And I literally said to myself, where do I know this voice from? And when I looked it up, I was like, oh my God, it's Ellis from Die Hard. And so I do a deep dive into Hart Bachner. Hart Bachner has been working the entire time, of course. Like to this day, his last credit is 2019. Like he's still working. Amazing.
And the thing is, though, I think the thing that threw me off is you look at the picture that they have on IMDb, and it looks nothing like what you would expect him to look like. He looks like Trent Reznor, to be quite frank, in that picture.
Well, it is a very misleading 8x10 for sure.
Now, as I've said before we started recording, I hadn't seen this before. Like I knew a lot about it.
That surprises me so much, Bruce, since you watch a lot of superhero stuff that I would never even think of watching.
But this just wasn't on a streaming platform for free at a time that I was interested in watching it. Sometimes it just comes out that simple.
Sure.
And I haven't watched a lot of Batman the Animated Series either until it, what was it, on Amazon Prime or something where you could stream it. And then I watched a lot. So I didn't watch it, because Sean, you understand where we were in life in 92, 93, 94. So it's just a matter of getting back to it. But I knew all kinds of, I knew all about the story of the toy that spoiled the movie. And after finally watching it, I can kind of say, Yeah, it's pretty broadcast. Like I don't know, and maybe I've got this whole baggage of I already knew the story of the toy spoiling the identity of the Phantasm, but it looked to me like they were sort of broadcasting that pretty wide. I don't think it was much of a shock when the reveal happened, even if you hadn't known about the toy.
It also, I mean, the one thing about this movie is that it kind of portrays the world's greatest detective, does it not? I mean,
in a couple of ways, and we'll talk about it.
And also, I didn't know Joker was in this. So when Joker, like, I thought it was all just going to be focused on Batman and the Phantasm. And then when Joker shows up and you got Mark Hamill doing the voice, that was just a nice little unexpected treat. It's like you go see a band you really like in concert, and without announcing it, hey, special guest is going to come out here and do a song with us, and it's somebody you also like.
Yeah,
it kind of had that feeling to it.
Well, also, my favorite Joker line of all time is in this movie. What's an old timer like you doing with a two timer like me?
Yeah,
I like that.
It's such a delight. I'd forgotten that Joker was in this, and when he comes on screen, it's like, oh my gosh, it is just like, it's like getting into a nice warm bath. You're just like, oh, this is just perfect. It's exactly what it should be. Mark Hamill is going in and just absolutely murdering it. And I think that as far as like in moving media, I don't think anybody has gotten both Batman and the Joker more correct than Batman the Animated Series has.
And my favorite little nugget of trivia from this movie is, Joker is in the, totally cast against type. They've got Joker in the abandoned amusement park. But they've got like the carousel of progress from Disney World here, and they've got the robot maid. Well, that robot maid that is featured in this show, her name is Hazel, and she is indeed named after Hazel of Shirley Booth fame from an old TV show I watched whether I liked it or not as a kid because I had 3 channels.
I love that. I love how he's constantly hitting on the robot. I love it when he's doing it when no one's there. He will pinch her cheek and a little bit of her face will come off. He puts it in his pocket. And I'm like,
puts it in his pocket.
I love it. It's so stupid and so crazy that you're like, yeah, that feels like what the Joker would do. He's an insane person.
And for some reason, they made like because Harley Quinn already existed at this point in time, and they were so committed to the idea of showing Joker as a force all on his own that they decided Harley Quinn would not service this movie. So it was a conscious decision not to put Paul Dini's creation and favorite character in the movie that he helped co-write here.
It's a little bit of restraint, and I think that's a good thing. And this movie, like I said, it's an hour and 16 long. It does feel like it's longer than that, but not in a bad way.
Yeah.
It does. The second time they go to the graveyard, I noticed I was like, oh, man, this is really dragging.
I will say for the length, a short movie, an hour and 16, is that what we're saying here? 76 minutes?
Yeah.
Even at that short length, this is not a movie that's going to hold a kid's attention. I mean, this is made with the idea that it's like grown-up Batman fans going in to watch it because they like the Burton movies and stuff, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's few things in here as a kid, and like I said, I was 11 when this thing came out. So as a kid, what you want to see is Batman kicking the crap out of people. And there's not a ton of that in this movie. And on top of that, as if that wasn't enough of a hill for most kids to climb, this story is told very non-linearly. There's a lot of flashbacks here and there, and if you're not paying attention, you won't know what time frame that you're in.
Another hint that they weren't really aiming for kids as their primary audience is they said they were going for a Citizen Kane vibe in those flashbacks.
Also, having Batman dressed up in a really nice sweater for like 85% of the movie doesn't help either.
Yeah, no. I didn't clock it, but I'd love to know what the actual number is of Batman screen time in this movie. It's certainly not as much as Bruce is in there.
And they had a little Batman Begins, Batman Year One stuff with him in just like the ski mask in the black suit trying to fight crime there, like the early incarnation of the costume.
Has anybody ever said whether
that in a movie?
Has anybody ever said whether the Phantasm in this movie is based on the Reaper from Batman Year Two?
The name originally was the Reaper.
Oh,
and then they changed it to the Phantasm to for market purposes, I guess is what they said. And they went through 20 different character designs before they landed on the one in the movie, which I got to say looks like it would have been something you could land on without taking 20 attempts.
Yeah, it's almost like it's halfway there, and it doesn't feel like it's a 20th attempt. Unless the 20th attempt was, let's keep dumbing it down until it's, this.
And you look at the Reaper from Batman Year 2, the way the character was drawn, you see the similarities, particularly with the mask and the cowl, but the Reaper's got some red and it's more a full-on skull than just a mask that suggests a skull, but you definitely see the similarities there.
Let me ask you guys this. When we have that first scene where, him and Andrea there are walking along, that guy's getting his money stolen, his little money box there and everything. Bruce decides that he can't just stand there. He's got to go into action. He tackles these guys, and he's doing a pretty good job. He catches eyes with her at some point. Do you think that it was the reason then that he got hit with that baseball bat by the guy that's driving the motorcycle? Do you think that was because he lost his attention for a second, looked over at her, and then he was hit? Or do you think that he realized that she was watching and that he may not have to go into, quote unquote, full Batman mode, for lack of a better word, because Batman doesn't exist at this point?
What an excellent question, Adam, because I hadn't thought of it like that. I had always thought of it as that he just got distracted.
Yeah,
I thought he wasn't expecting to see her, so he sees her and he gets hit. I never even thought about, he's got to play incompetent here.
Yeah, I felt like the way that you're talking about, I thought that that's the way that it played, but at the same time, too, I was just like, I wonder if he thinks, like, maybe I shouldn't be showing off all of this stuff, so I'll get one to the gut. But at the same, it doesn't make a ton of sense because they still get away with the goods and everything, and he doesn't have a secret identity per se to protect, so that's confusing as well. I don't know. It was a strange thought that I had.
I think it's a good thought, man. I like that kind of thinking.
What a good idea. I had never thought of it the other way. Do you guys think that you're going to watch this again, like within the next 2 years?
I don't think I will.
No, maybe.
I don't either.
This feels like at this point in my life, it might be one more watch, and that'd be it. But a couple years down the road, I'd watch it and be like, all right, well, that's it. I don't need that anymore. We're good.
How old are you? I'm about 2 more Batman Mask of the Phantasm watches.
After that, we're checking out, boy.
I like that. That's how we measure our mortality now.
Well, let's. Go ahead.
If I thought my kids would enjoy it, I might watch it again. But they're not gonna.
No, not at their age. They got another 10 years before they're gonna find this entertaining.
I might have another 10 years. I mean, this is really aimed at the Orson Welles crowd.
No, listen, I'm in the crowd myself, but so you mentioned previously about how this kind of steps on Batman in a lot of ways, and I think you're right because, well, first of all, I love that he's out in his yard by himself practicing jujitsu, which is the art of throwing, and not having anything to throw. I find curious. But then she goes, and that's another one that makes me think is did he get thrown by her on purpose, or is she good enough to throw him? And we find out later, obviously, who she is, so perhaps that she was. I just thought, but wouldn't that raise an eyebrow early or during The Greatest Detective?
I think that scene is infinitely better if she walks up to the mansion and he's just tossing 70-year-old Alfred around willy-nilly.
Sir, he's just gone, hits a trash can, and the cat screeches. You know how it works.
I do think that they were expecting people who watch this movie to be familiar with Batman Year 2 because they use a misdirect that doesn't work if you don't know Batman Year 2 because Stacy Keach, who does the voice of Andrea's father, also does the voice of the Phantasm. So I think they're wanting you to think you know where this story is going, and that's why there's a twist there.
Well, yeah.
It's thinking you need a false spoiler for the spoiler to have effect. And maybe that's why the toy got under their nails more than anything.
Yeah, and at the same time, too, they put enough processing on it to where, let's say that you're going to have this be a kid, right? A kid's television show or movie. Because that's who we purport to be showing it to, despite it being, 5% Batman. I don't know that most kids would probably pick that up, that it was him, or if they would go back and go oh yeah, it did kind of sound like that. But I think all of us as adults just go okay, well, I know at least where that is, and yeah, I mean it's a slight misdirect, but it works well enough, I think, for the 14-year-old audience that it's probably made for.
And it's pre-IMDb, so they didn't have to worry about that. But now IMDb would say Stacy Keach as the father's character / Phantasm. And you think, well, gee, they're spoiling it right there. But then you get the surprise.
Yeah, it's curious because on IMDb on the mobile version has it precisely like that. And I'm looking at it on the iPad now, and it just has him down as Phantasm. So I don't know.
And also, for the record, I thought Stacey
Paul Dini and the guys that make the Batman animated series, they just had their finger on the pulse of what kids wanted. They wanted Stacy Keach. They want Batman in a sweater, and man, let's close the night with Tia Carrera singing a love ballad.
Yes,
nailed it.
Oh man.
All those kids have been staying at home watching Fish, and they want to watch Abe Vigoda on the screen.
I love Abe Vigoda.
I mean, he's good on Barney Miller, but Fish was a whole nother level.
My favorite was just the years and years practice of just having Abe Vigoda come out and wave to the crowd on Conan. Every now and then he'd just come out and just go, let's check on and see if Abe Vigoda's alive. Abe Vigoda would come out, and all he would do was wave at the crowd, walk out the other door, and that was his cameo for the night, and the world loved it.
I bet he got paid, too.
Oh, well, hell yeah, he got paid.
You still got to hit those SAG dues, bub.
You got that right.
He's putting the SAG in SAG at that point. Paul Dini said something great about these dating flashbacks between Batman and Andrea. He said he wanted to show things starting off great, and then they have a tendency to get worse when you're hoping they'll get better. And I was like, man, that just described every relationship that I've ever been aware of.
Things are going well. Maybe not so much now.
Or like, you understand things are going in a good direction, but you really think this is going to like help steady the boat a little bit. And that's when someone does something to make things worse. That is real life.
Yeah. No, I agree. I can't talk about this out loud.
But how about that Hazel, Shirley Booth, ladies and gentlemen?
Shirley Booth's amazing.
Just when the show's going to bummer territory, all you got to do is invoke Shirley Booth and everybody smiles.
Did you guys notice when the Joker shoots those robots at the state fair? Mm-hmm. Did they make the same sound that the Millennium Falcon does when it's shutting down?
I totally didn't pick up on that.
And I love how the heads are everything that explodes on those things as well, which is great. It's just like, what's going to go? It's going to be the head. I still find I love and am frightened by all the kinds of rides and stuff, everything from like your old Pirates of the Caribbean to the E.T. ride and anything that you can go through on a ride and there's like animatronic characters and stuff. I love it and am frightened of it at the same time.
Oh, man. I hate to tell you, but I went in a bad direction while you were talking, but I found out that Hazel is indeed based on a comic strip from the Saturday Evening Post. So that if the cinema shutdown goes on, guys, we're going to be reviewing Hazel.
Hazel, available on Amazon Prime.
I literally have no idea what you're talking about.
You never saw the old TV show Hazel?
No.
With Shirley Booth. Oh, you're in for a treat, my friend.
Booth. I don't know Hazel.
Thank me later. That's all I'm going to say. You'll find out and you'll thank me later.
Here's the thing, Sean.
I think I'm going to stay blissfully unaware.
The reason you don't know that is because you're not the generation before you. Now, if you were the generation before you, you definitely would know who Hazel is and all that crap. But Bruce is clearly just saying he's also an old man.
I'm no older than Sean. You've seen TV shows that aired between 1961 and 1966.
Of course.
Yeah, Hazel was one of them. It had 153 episodes in black and white and one in color.
I wonder if this is a northern-southern thing, because that's one of the things I noticed when I moved to the South in the first place is that, like, everybody knew who Andy Griffith was, but growing up north, they didn't run Andy Griffith, so I didn't know anything about him. I knew him as the guy from Matlock.
I'm pretty sure Hazel is set in New England. I wouldn't swear to it, but man, Hazel should be your Andy Griffith.
I look, my butler / maid that lives in the house is Who's the Boss.
Yeah. Oh, mine's probably more Mr. Belvedere than Who's the Boss.
I was a Mr.
Belvedere
too. Yeah, I was a Mr. Belvedere kid for sure. Not that I didn't watch Who's with the Boss, because I most certainly did. But
did you guys know that Dana Delaney was in Tombstone the same year that Batman Mask of the Phantasm came out? I had no idea.
huh?
Oh man, that's a good year.
Yeah, especially for Dana Delaney.
I want to talk about, there's so much in this that I was really surprised about from like an art perspective, because there's so many different shots in this movie that you never got in Batman the Animated Series. A lot, most specifically, a lot of profile shots in this movie, which you never saw. It was always 3/4 profile with most people, and this shows the reason that I draw Batman the way that I do in that 3/4 profile all the time, because that's what I was used to kind of seeing. But they did a couple of profile shots here, and a lot more extreme close-ups than you would normally see in Batman the Animated Series. So I was so glad to see that not only were they kind of keeping with this style, but like Beavis and Butthead Do America, they did what they did previously, but did a lot more of it and did it in a broader and grander scale.
And they had a $6 million budget, which is probably more dollars per minute than they get on the animated show. So I think
I think
they put
a
it on
touch.
the screen.
But yeah, I was very surprised at all that. And again, I'm going to say it because I'll always say it. Kevin Conroy is my Batman. I think he does the best job at displaying who Batman is, the difference between him and Bruce Wayne. Of course, it's all in the voice. And the thing that I think every actor that plays Batman should do, just make your own personal voice, your regular voice, just a little more growly. And then when you're in Bruce Wayne mode, just take your regular voice, bring it up an octave. You're set. That's your Batman. Kevin Conroy got that, and it's on display here a whole bunch as Bruce Wayne and Batman, and it's just such a great mix. And the same thing goes for Hamill's Joker, having that wild and crazy turn on a dime where he is just like, because there's a moment, I forget exactly what the line is, but he says something in the most straightforward, I'm going to kill you manner, and then flips it to a joke like half a second later. And that's that crazy wild-eyedness of the Joker that makes you truly scared of that character because he's insane. And a couple of really great close-up shots of his face looking dead on down the camera and everything, laughing. So amazingly scary. And having the Abe Vigoda character, the Salvador character, get the kind of Joker injection, that rictus grin on his face when they pull down the newspaper, is so effective. It's great. And like some of it, you're just like, wow, PG movie, and this is kind of creepy for a PG flick.
Looking directly into a camera, Don Johnson has a phrase called buzzing the camera. I'm going to buzz the camera. It's true. He does. I got to say that I got to ask this question because I watched some of Batman the Animated Series. I am not of the same age range that you are, Adam, so I don't just have like all of the love for this series that you do. Mm-hmm. Does the Joker know that Bruce Wayne is Batman on this show?
Not to my recollection, no.
The only reason why I'm asking this question is because he's able to figure out that Andrea is the Phantasm earlier than Batman can. And so I'm wondering if he's able to figure that out, is he must know.
And that's Joker. To me, that's the great thing about the Joker, is that you can really play that ideal either way and it works. That he doesn't know, or perhaps that he does know and doesn't want to admit that he knows or lean into it just because the game discontinues if he admits it.
I've read exactly what you just said, and maybe it was a bit of an Elseworld story, but there was like an Elseworld story where the Joker admits, yes, of course, I've always known who he is, but if I let him know I knew who he was, then that's the end of our little cat and mouse game, so I have to pretend like I don't. I mean, basically put it out in black and white like that.
And if you think about Burton's Batman, there were a couple times in there where you felt like, he knew who he was. Right, and so I get.
I don't know. I don't remember if I felt that way with Burton's Batman.
There's a couple of looks. That's all I'm saying. It's just some looks that just kind of go like, maybe I know something that you don't think I know, or maybe that's just me reading into it. It could be either or. But yeah, the soundtrack is fantastic. Like I said, the lady that's
Tia Carrera,
of course. But it's very much Elfman-esque, and I'm glad that they brought on someone who had worked on the animated series, so they got a lot of that style, but certainly added a lot of her own style to it as well, and very impressed by that. And that's something I feel like I saw Mask of the Phantasm out on vinyl at some point, and I was like, I wonder why anybody would actually get that. And having listened to it now, I go, I understand. It's good.
Shirley Walker did the score. She's pretty famous, right?
Oh, tons of stuff. I mean, she's one of those people that you look up their IMDb and you may not know her name, but 75% of the things that she's worked on. It's unbelievable. Tons of television stuff, movie stuff. She's all over the place, and all of it pretty darn good.
Yeah. I was reading something else here though that I would have never guessed this. Maybe it makes sense to you guys, but until The Killing Joke came out, about 4 years ago, this was the only animated Batman theatrical release.
Yeah, I felt like at some point they wanted to make I don't know if they made it was Batman Sub-Zero.
Yeah, that was direct to video.
Exactly. But they thought about bringing that out to theaters from what I remember from back in the day. They were like, oh, maybe we'll do this. But this movie tanked at the box office. Like you said, $6 million budget. It made under $6 million total. Ooh. So not so good.
Yeah.
So I think that's
this
why
was still
a
time. I mean, maybe this was still a time where some people thought like I did, like, why go see this in the theater when I can watch it for free on Fox Kids Afternoon or whatever the animated series came on.
I think part of that problem is like you said, this thing came out on Christmas Day. You put this thing out in, let's call it early May or late April or something like that. It probably would have done better business.
Yeah, but I think an animated feature, the people who write the movie and the people who decide when to release it are very different. So they're thinking animated feature with Batman. Christmas is probably a good time for animated features. And there weren't a lot of animated features to compete with in the 90s. It had gotten kind of expensive to do animation.
Yeah, really around 95 and the big resurgence with obviously Little Mermaid. I forget exactly what year that is, but Lion King was really that. I think that turning point for Disney going, oh my God, Disney animation is back and going hardcore. And then I think that really ushered in a lot of our modern day animated films.
Lion King was 94, so a few months after this.
Yeah, so exactly.
So Adam, you probably know this better than me because you're around the age range. Is this the time of Treasure Planet?
I don't know what Treasure Planet is. I'm going to be honest.
Oh, I remember Treasure Planet ads. I never saw the movie.
I didn't either. But there's a whole cross section of people who are millennials who Treasure Planet holds a dear place in their heart for some reason.
Yeah, Treasure Planet's 2002.
There you go.
I think I remember seeing ads for that. I do not believe that I've seen it, or at least if I've seen it, I certainly don't remember it. But yeah, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say I have not seen that. Interesting. Got a little Joseph Gordon-Levitt in there. How can you go wrong with that, right? But no, it is of the time, and I think, at least from where I'm sitting now, looking at it, all these years later, perhaps, I think other than the fact that it came out at Christmas, I don't think they may have sold it as well as it could have, nor do I think that this should be the thing that you plop Batman in to sell him as an animated movie for everybody.
I was thinking that too. I still think that Clayface 2-parter or 3-parter, I still think that's a better story than this one.
That's a way better story that you could have done. And yeah, you add those two together, they're about 80 minutes. And honestly, that is a story that I think, now I'm not going to say that you need to make it 90 minutes, but I think you could probably add 10 to 15, maybe even 20 minutes into that and still have it flow and not feel like it's, dragging on or anything. Because let's talk about...
I may have my timeline a little out of whack here, but I feel like what might have happened is folks saw some of those incredible story arcs on the series and said, why don't we do a theatrical release? But they'd already used the best bullet in their cylinder, so to speak, and that's why we got this.
Yeah, like Heart of Ice would have made a great version of this for sure. So I think that's where they obviously went with Sub-Zero, but you've already told that story so darn well within the series itself, you certainly couldn't do that again. Oh, I want to go back to this for a second because you talked about Joker figuring out who the Phantasm was, but I also want to talk about her figuring out Batman in like 2 seconds. You want to talk about somebody who put together all the clues? Man, she runs a better detective agency than Batman. I'll tell you that right now. All she does is go. I'm at Mama's grave. I hear something in the background. I turn around and I see a guy, and I'm like, wait a minute. Didn't this happen to me 15 years ago or however long the sequence is? She walks up and turns around and just goes, that's got to be Batman. She put 2 and 2 together.
Hey,
like, what if Batman was just by that?
There ain't no way there's 2 guys in Gotham cruising the cemetery for chicks.
But, and I love that.
You're forgetting about Gravebanger.
and not for nothing, that's how that first Phantasm movie starts, okay?
Thus, there's the tie with the name.
Dude getting laid in a cemetery and then comes to his untimely demise. But I love how like this is Bruce Wayne's idea of hitting on a chick. He's looking at his parents' thing, and she's talking to Mama's grave, and she's saying all these things, and he just goes, "What's that? You're talking to me? Huh? Am I? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking to me." He goes back and forth, and as they're walking along, she's like, "Yeah, I come and I talk to Mom here at her grave and everything. I kind of know that she's not really here or listening or anything, but it feels like it makes me feel better." And he goes, "Yeah, I do that myself." And then when I'm turning around going, "Wait a minute, then why are you asking her who she's talking to? Why are you assuming that I'm sure you've talked to her, your parents at the grave, and all of a sudden you're turning it on to like, oh, what's that? You want a date with me? I'm rich man, billionaire Bruce Wayne."
It's absolutely what he's doing, man. He's trying to pick up the lady. And also, I kind of feel like maybe she doesn't normally talk out loud, but she's doing it because she's trying to get this guy to leave her alone.
You know it's bad, though, when she answers Mama back. That's not a good sign. If you go up and you just be like, Mom, I really miss you. I wish you were here. We're doing so much great things. What's that again? You don't want to hear somebody say the "what's that again" because that's where things have turned. Where if Mama's talking back to you, we've gone from something sweet to something a little scary.
Oh man, I just found out that Paul Dini's wife is a stage magician. Talk about a great Thanksgiving party.
I also want to say, oh shoot, I forgot about it. I'm sorry. It just it was there for half a second and then it was gone.
You got anything else to add on to this? And it's hard to stretch this one out, guys.
I remembered. So let's talk about this for half a second because this is the first time I've ever really thought about this because a line from Alfred made me think. He goes, "I've been doing all this since you were, such and such in diapers and all that kind of crap." Is Alfred the most just kind of go along guy ever?
I think so.
If you were, I've been raising this kid since he was born. His parents died. I'm staying along, and I'm kind of giving the okay on any and everything this guy wants to do. Is he that hard up for a job that he's just like, okay, I'll go along with this Batman stuff that you got going? Why not? He just seems like an enabler.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's the world's most notorious enabler. You got one job. Keep this very wealthy orphan child alive. And he has to go to the grave and say, "I failed you" at the end of one of those movies that Nolan did.
It's like, oh, what can I do for you, Mr. Wayne? Oh, you'd like to go off and kill people? Well, I feel like since your parents left me, in charge of you, it's only my duty to make sure that we can do all that crap. It seems a little nuts to me.
He should have steered him towards grieving via very aggressive poetry or something. That would have worked better.
Oh, my Lord.
Sell some of that poetry there, Bruce. All right, before we get to our final review here and everything, we have to ask ourselves one very important question is, how does this animated film relate one-to-one with Sylvester Stallone?
Thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement. They brought in Neil Ross to do additional voices on Batman Mask of the Phantasm. He's worked on every cartoon that's ever been made since 1981. He has 266 credits on his IMDb. His latest credit being this year of our Lord 2020, working on the Final Fantasy VII remake. He shipwrecked in the G.I. Joe cartoon, Bone Crusher on Transformers. He did the voice of Dwayne in Kissy Fur. He's in everything. He's the voice of the pod in the movie Inner Space. That's 2 podcasts in a row we've talked about Inner Space.
Oh.
And he's the voice of John Rambo on the cartoon series Rambo. You know, Rambo, the guy who shot up all those cops in a small town in the Pacific Northwest. Now he's a cartoon. Neil Ross has done voiceover work for so many cartoons. He's even voiced characters for cartoons based on TV shows and movies I didn't even know existed. Things like Pole Position, the cartoon. They made a cartoon based on the video game Pole Position.
I watched it.
13 episodes. The Dukes, based on the Dukes of Hazzard. You know, the show about hillbilly moonshiners?
Yeah.
The Mork and Mindy, Laverne and Shirley Fonz Hour. An hour.
Watched it. Watched it.
Why did they only make it an hour? And there it is. Your Stallone connection this week is Neil Ross, the voice of Mean Gene Okerlund on WWF's Rock and Wrestling.
Oh, I watched that.
Clyde the Ghost from the Pac-Man cartoon show, and John Rambo. Gentlemen, this is the 322nd episode of this bit, and still no word from Sylvester Stallone.
Damn shame. I actually, believe it or not, I just watched a thing on YouTube. It's from the channel's called Toy Galaxy, and
I love Toy Galaxy.
It's
with Dan.
This one's called The Cartoon Controversy of Rambo, The Force of Freedom. Really interesting episode. I'll link that in the show notes. But it's about like 13 minutes long, but it's a whole thing about the animated
Dan
Rambo
Larson's
show and the
awesome.
cartoons and stuff. Real good. That guy does some work. When you watch that, you just go, "Oh, this is somebody that's good. This is a
I'm
good
gonna have
dude."
to check that out.
I think you'll like it.
The best one he has, the one that got me hooked, is Wonder Bread He-Man.
Oh, I watched that one too. That's another good one. So
God, that one's so good.
good stuff there. That is it, everybody. What we're doing? I forgot what we're doing.
Do we
next
want to
week. I
give
know
a
we-
Robin rating?
Oh my goodness gracious! Well, let's get to. I'm sorry, I got off on the Rambo train and then I couldn't
Look,
stop.
we start talking Dan Larson for Toy Galaxy. I'm all in, baby.
All right. Well, here at Hero Movie Podcast, we have our own Robin rating system. If you'd like to check that out, head on down to our subreddit, reddit.com/r/Hero Movie Podcast, and join up today, everybody. Bruce, where does Batman Mask of the Phantasm fall in the Robin rating system for you?
Sorry, my ears got buzzed real quick while we were talking there. I'm going to say I'm not in love with the story. It's all about the animation here, and I'm impressed with the animation and maybe a little, historical value to checking it out if you want to be into the Batman lore. It's on Netflix, so it won't cost you more than an hour and 16 minutes of your life, and life is a finite resource, but I think it's worth checking it out. I'm going to give it like that Damian Wayne watch. If you're curious, I'm not going to take offense if you skip it.
Yeah, I get that. Sean?
To me, this feels like it's a nice thing to watch. It's done so well. It's a little boring. It can be a little boring. So I'm going to give it a low Tim Drake.
Yeah, I'm suffering there because I'm kind of like right in the middle of you guys. I feel like a low Tim Drake, high Damian Wayne on this. It's not fantastic, but I'll say this. I think Mark Hamill's Joker really kind of this is one of the better Joker performances within the Batman the Animated Series, and I think that's saying something, even though the character itself doesn't have as much room to grow and move because he's not the main villain per se in this movie. But what he does with what he has and how it was animated this time really stepped it up from what we'd seen in previous Batman the Animated Series, so I definitely have to praise it on that. I'm just going to go high Damian Wayne on this. It's certainly of a time. It's definitely not for everybody, and I think you would probably enjoy it more in an advanced stage than you probably did in 1993 is my guess, just because of the type of story that it is and what it's trying to tell you, and especially if you were like me and 11 years old in 1993, there's no way in heck I would have liked this in 1993, and I think whenever I saw it on video I was like, it's all right, but it just it's boring for a child, and a child's not going to enjoy this, so
it's kind of like listening to jazz music, where it's really nice to listen to jazz music, but it gets boring after a while.
And you don't want to pay money necessarily to listen to jazz music.
Well, it depends on what jazz music that you're listening to, but that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother show where Old Man Adam shows up again.
And it's been stolen from black people.
Yeah, you know. But we'll be covering all kinds of stuff. So again, thank you.
Joker in a jetpack. How can you hate that? I mean,
It's tough. So that is it, everybody. We've got a whole bunch of stuff out there right now, and we hope that you take a listen to it. Bruce, why don't you tell us about one of those things?
Oh, why don't people go check out the Boys 30 Question? Because nothing makes more sense than to start a podcast in the second season of a show. Go check out the Boys 30 Questions. We're doing the first 3 episodes that dropped over the holiday weekend. They should all be out there for you pretty soon after you're hearing this, if they're not already. Go check that out, then join us once a week as the season continues.
It's a really fun time. I'm enjoying that show so far. It's just, I wish they would have put out 3 episodes right away because it's a lot of work right off the bat. But it'll be nice when we get that little break in there to where it'll be like, oh, okay, good. We don't have to do another episode after episode after episode 3 days in a row. So, Sean, what else?
Mandalorian 30 questions, because the Mandalorian season 2 is about to start. We're a little over a month away, and I'm excited. But we have a podcast based on each episode, and we have done. We covered the entire first season. We'll cover the second season. It is just funsies.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff there coming out in October. There's a quote unquote teaser trailer up there right now that IGN put out, which was fantastic. But check that out at Mandalorian 30 Questions wherever you find podcasts. That's it, everybody. Join us next week when we're talking more comic book action. For Sweet Sean Kovacs from the internet, Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Porteous. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie.